Every now and then, a film comes along that doesn't just move you, it reframes how you understand your own taste. And for me, most recently, that film was Train Dreams. When I finished it, I didn't just think, that was beautiful or that was devastating. I realised something much more specific. I think one of my favourite subgenres of all time is what I'd call the broken American frontiersman. Films about lonely, wounded men on the edges of civilization. Men chasing the promise of a better life. Men who lose everything along the way. And men who are forced to live with that loss in silence. Train Dreams is set in the American Northwest, primarily Idaho, spanning the late 19th and early 20th century. It follows Robert Grainer, a quiet, working class man who drifts through a life of brutal physical labour, mostly building railroads, logging, and frontier infrastructure. He marries, builds a small home, and has a daughter. And then, almost casually and cruelly, he loses both his wife and child in a fire. What makes the film so powerful isn't just the tragedy, it's what doesn't happen afterward. There's no revenge arc, no grand redemption story, no dramatic breakdown scene. Instead, the film becomes something quieter and much more haunting. A portrait of a man who keeps living after life has effectively ended for him. Robert becomes a lost soul on the frontier. He drifts, he works, he survives, and slowly and painfully he comes to terms with a grief that never really leaves him. Here's the thing, Train Dreams technically sits inside the time period of the Western genre. It's set at the tail end of the Cowboy era, the late 1800s. It has frontier landscapes, railroads, isolation, rough labour, but it's absolutely not a Western in the traditional sense. There are no shootouts, no outlaws, no heroic standoffs, no cowboy myth-making. It's not about conquest, it's not about domination, it's not about taming the land, it's about being crushed by it. And that's why I don't think Western really fits here. So I started thinking, what is this kind of film? And that's where I landed on a name, the broken American frontiersman. To me, this subgenre has a few core traits. These films are about men who exist on the margins of civilization. They're chasing the promise of a better life. They lose everything, family, identity, and purpose, and are spiritually and emotionally destroyed by the frontier. They're left to endure rather than triumph. They're not heroes, they're not legends, they're not symbols of American greatness. They're casualties of the American dream. And stylistically, these films tend to be slow, quiet, visceral, naturalistic, and obsessed with landscape, labour, and loneliness. They care more about endurance than victory. The closest cousin to Train Dreams is The Revenant, and honestly, I think it's wildly underappreciated. Yes, it's bigger and more brutal, and it has a more conventional revenge spine, but thematically, it's the same story. Leonardo DiCaprio's Hugh Glass is a man on the frontier trying to build a future. He loses his son, he's left for dead, he's physically destroyed. And what follows is not a heroic power fantasy, it's a story about a man clawing himself back into existence. The wilderness isn't romantic in The Revenant, it's indifferent, cruel, and uncaring, just like in Train Dreams. In both films, the land doesn't care about your dreams. The land doesn't care about your suffering. The land just keeps going, and so do these men, whether or not they want to.
I ain't afraid to die anymore. I've done it already.
Then there's Unforgiven. This one is a classic western, but it belongs in the genre because it completely dismantles the traditional frontier fantasy. Clint Eastwood's William Money is not a charming gunslinger. He's old, broke, broken, haunted by his past violence, and barely holding his life together. He's a widower, a failed farmer, a man trying to survive long enough to raise his children. And when he returns to violence, it isn't glorious. It's ugly, it's clumsy, and it's soul-destroying. Unforgiven exposes the psychological cost of the frontier. It shows what happens after the legend ends, which puts it right alongside Train Dreams and The Revenant.
It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got, and all he's ever gonna have.
There are a few key themes which I think link all these films together. They are the frontier as a graveyard for dreams. The American frontier isn't freedom, it's a machine that eats people. Grief without release. None of these men get closure, they just learn to live with unbearable loss. Silence over speech. These films are quiet. The men don't talk about their pain, they just carry it. Nature as an antagonist. The wilderness isn't beautiful, it's lethal. And finally, endurance as the only victory. Survival itself becomes the entire point. Since watching Train Dreams, I can't stop thinking about this genre, because it feels honest. It cuts through the American frontier mythology and replaces it with something raw, tragic and human. But here's the problem. These films are often expensive, slow, depressing, not franchise friendly, and not box office gold either, which is why we don't get many of them anymore. And that's a shame, because I think this is one of the richest, most emotionally powerful corners of cinema. So yeah, I think my new favourite genre is the broken American frontiersman, films about lonely men crushed by the promise of a better life, wandering through the ruins of their own dreams. If you know any films that fit this vibe, let me know in the comments.